The First Amendment clearly states it. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. The founders clearly understood the importance of your right to practice or not practice religion in this country. However, in a predominantly Christian nation, the significance of atheism's growing popularity has underscored in today's social dialogue. Atheism is one of the fastest growing social movements in the country. Yes, it is a movement, and it's gaining substantial political ground. Earlier this year, D.C.'s Reason Rally brought in 20,000 people in the pouring rain to stand for atheistic ideals. So is atheism a force to be reckoned with? And what will this mean to the dynamics of our country? To answer that, I'm joined by Seton Motley's not here, and David Silverman, president of the American Atheists.
Thank you for having me on the show, Abby.
Thank you so much. So why do you think that, atheism's growing faster than any other movement, it seems? Why do you think it's largely ignored or marginalized in the social dialogue?
Well, it's been largely ignored or marginalized because religion wants it that way. And religion does not want their parishioners or their flock talking to atheists because, quite frankly, we make a lot more sense than they do. So they tell the parishioners that we're bad, we're evil, we are grumpy, we have no morals. And the atheists in this country are getting really tired of it. And thanks to the internet, thanks to the communication that the internet provides, nobody in this country, the atheists in this country, no longer feel like they're alone. We can connect with each other much more easily, in fact, effortlessly. And as a result, we can organize much more easily, and that's where we got the Reason Rally, and that is why atheism is the fastest growing religious segment in all of the 50 states, which is something that's very encouraging to all of us.
David, let's talk about the internet for a little bit. I mean, you talked about how atheism is growing so rapidly. You guys are finding and reaching out to each other on the internet. I mean, religion is primarily culture-based, and as the internet allows the homogenization of culture worldwide, would you say that religions will be evolving, or that more atheists will find out or abandon their religion and discover atheism? And what do you think about that?
Well, religion has always been evolving. Christianity itself is just the latest incarnation of the mythologies that have been with the human race since we evolved. Religion always evolves and it splinters, and that's why there are more factions of Christianity than there are sentences in the Bible. But yes, as people get more and more educated, as more information is presented to the American public, they will be able to understand just how wrong their religion is and just how normal and reasonable it is to throw all that mythology aside and actually deal with what is now and what is real in the human condition today.
David, couldn't you say that atheism is a form of religion in the sense that you do claim to know that there is no God? I mean, could you identify what is the difference between agnosticism and atheism really quickly?
And that's a really good question. Agnosticism and atheism are actually not on the same continuum. And you just misspoke. We do not specifically say that there is definitely no God. Some atheists do, but the definition of atheism is just the absence of a belief in God. So you can be absent of a belief in God and be fully aware that we don't know everything, in which case you'd be an agnostic atheist. Agnosticism is simply the realization that we don't know everything, which kind of means that agnosticism has very little meaning because nobody knows everything. But what we do know is that we have a complete absence of evidence for the existence of anything supernatural. And that is an absolute statement that I just made. In the history of mankind, there has been no scientific evidence supporting the existence of the supernatural. Just like there's been no scientific evidence for the support of the existence of leprechauns or any other mythological creatures.
So, David, do you think that atheism equates pretty much to critical thinking, then, is what you're saying? Being a critical thinker?
Atheism is the direct result of critical thinking. That's what we say. Atheism is the direct result of critical thinking, that nobody can really look at a mythology, at a religion, and think critically about it as far as we're concerned, and come up with, yeah, that makes sense to me. An invisible magic man in the sky. Yeah, that stands up to critical thinking. No, it doesn't. Now, if evidence comes forward ever and supports it, I'll listen. But until then, I'm an atheist.
Let's hear a little bit from what people thought in the streets that back up how this is a growing trend. Let's play these thoughts really quick.
Of course. I mean, that's a part of everyone's life. It's sort of hard to not have religion, because you grow up with religion most of the time. And if you're raised with it, that's how you base your ideas off of.
I think they'll always be around. I don't think that we can ever really move away from people's their personal opinion and then I think that they use their personal opinion to stand behind their religion, or they use their religion to stand behind their personal opinion.
I think church and state is really something meant for the institutional processes of government as opposed to the decision-making processes inside the minds of the policymakers, who are human just like anyone else. Atheism is still small enough in number where there's not a significant degree of votes to be picked up by specifically reaching out to that group. Well, on the other token, I think there are a lot of groups in this country that are still not comfortable with atheists, so I would say that the risk is probably more than the reward.
If he has a religious preference where morals or standards that I agree with coincide with mine, then I know he's not going to push agendas that are different from what I go with.
Role of religion in politics in our country today is pretty big, and I think people associate a good president or a kinder person with someone who is Christian. So I think at this point, like, Romney and Obama are probably going for I'm a better candidate, I'm a better person than he is. So I think that's probably why they're not going for the atheist group at this point.
You know, as these people stated, religion plays such a huge role in the political spectrum. And, you know, it seems like, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like as every political cycle happens, you have people who are even more extreme, the Michelle Bachmans, these people who are saying, you know, bringing up these wedge issues like birth control, abortion, gay marriage. It just seems like it continues to get more out there. Do you think that this turns people off? I mean, what do you see happening politically with this extreme rhetoric?
Well, the religious right really has no leg to stand on when it comes to politics, okay? And what they do is they lean on religion because it gets them votes, and it does work. That's how George W. Bush got elected, not on issues, but on religion. And when you look at how this affects the public, what it does, and especially with this political cycle, is that it really highlighted just how ridiculous religion is and how bad it would be if these people were put into a power position. Contraception regulation, this is something that's 50 years old and backwards. What we need to realize, and what Americans need to realize, is two things. Number one, atheism is not out there to try and eliminate religion. All we're looking for is equality. All we're looking for is respect. All we're looking for is a place at the table that we deserve. Number two, most important, is that the separation of church and state benefits every American citizen except the preachers and the politicians in their pockets. And if you look at the people who are against the separation of church and state, who actually propose the merger, these are preachers who are going to financially benefit from that merger, and the politicians and the people who follow those preachers.
David, just to wrap up the segment, I just wanted to ask you, you know, as times get more tough, you know, there's a recession looming over us globally. Do you think that more people will turn to religion to try to find answers?
What I hope people will do is turn to the government and say, hey, it's time to start taxing religion. Because as times get tougher, people need to realize that these huge megachurches take approximately $79 billion out of the American public's pockets every year, just so that they can pray to a God that doesn't exist. And I am sick of it, and I hope that the people who are facing financial hard times realize that we can help this country dramatically if the church just pays their fair share.
It's an interesting point you bring up, David, and thanks for joining us. That was David
Thanks for having me on.
That was David Silverman, president of American Atheists.